James Mercer was nursing his third cup of coffee when the notification pinged on his wristcom. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another overdue bill, or perhaps his editor demanding the manuscript he'd promised 3 weeks ago. But the official government seal pulsing in bright orange gave him pause. "What now?" he muttered, tapping the notification. The message expanded across his kitchen counter's projection surface. "Sci-fi-compliancement. James Mercer, you have been selected for participation in the Emotional Resonance Exchange Program, EREP, under Galactic Peace Treaty Clause 42.3. Your service begins tomorrow at 900 hours. Your compliance is mandatory and appreciated." James blinked at the message, then read it again. What the actual hell? The peace treaty with the Nocturnians had been signed 6 months ago, ending the brief but devastating war that had left Earth's major cities in ruins and humanity on the brink of extinction. The Nocturnians, tall, elegant beings with indigo skin that seemed to shimmer with internal light, had technological capabilities that made Earth's most advanced weapons look like children's toys. The peace treaty hadn't been a negotiation, but a list of terms. James pulled up the news archives on his wristcom, searching for details about Clause 42.3. It took only moments to find the information, though most official sources use euphemistic language that obscured the true nature of the program. Emotional Resonance Exchange Program established to address Nocturnian physiological requirements. Selected human participants will engage in daily sessions to provide emotional stimulation, essential to Nocturnian well-being. It was a civilian blog that spelled it out more directly. Rule 42. Each human man must fulfill a galactic woman's desire once a day. "This can't be real," James said to his empty apartment. He tried contacting the local government office, but after 20 minutes of automated responses and transfers between departments, he reached a bored-sounding human operator. "Treaty Compliance Office. How may I assist you?" "I just received a notification about something called the Emotional Resonance Exchange Program. There must be some mistake. Name and citizen ID number, please." James Mercer, JM 7795-210. The sound of fingers tapping on a keyboard. "Mr. Mercer, your assignment is confirmed. You've been selected as a compatible match for a Nocturnian diplomat. Report to Integration Center 12 tomorrow at 900 hours for orientation and your first session." "But I didn't volunteer for this. I'm a writer, not a whatever this is. Participation is not voluntary, Mr. Mercer. It's a treaty obligation. All eligible citizens are subject to random selection." The operator's voice took on a practiced, reciting from a script quality. "I should remind you that before the treaty, we lost Vancouver, Johannesburg, and most of New Delhi. The alternative to compliance is—" "I get it," James interrupted. "But what exactly am I supposed to do?" "Orientation will cover all protocols. Mainly, you'll provide emotional engagement to your assigned Nocturnian. Nothing beyond your comfort level is required, but be advised that refusal to participate carries significant penalties." The call ended before James could ask any more questions. He stared at his reflection in the black screen of his tablet, taking in the 3-day stubble, disheveled brown hair, and the dark circles under his eyes. At 34, he wasn't exactly prime diplomatic material. His social skills had atrophied during the 5 years he'd spent working on his novel, a science fiction epic about humanity's triumphant victory over alien invaders, ironically enough. A deposit notification flashed on his wristcom. 500 universal credits, labeled Treaty Compliance Stipend. "At least they pay," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. He glanced around his apartment, which looked exactly like what it was, the habitat of a bachelor writer who rarely entertained visitors. Books and papers were stacked in precarious towers. Unwashed dishes formed an archaeological record of his meals from the past week. The air smelled of coffee grounds and desperation. He had less than 24 hours to transform both his living space and himself into something presentable for an alien diplomat. The absurdity of the situation struck him, and he let out a bark of laughter that held no humor. "Computer, call cleaning service, priority," he said, "and order a new set of clothes, formal but comfortable. Delivery by morning. Processing request. All cleaning services are currently experiencing high demand. Estimated wait time, 3 days." "Of course they are," James sighed. Every other poor soul who'd received this notification was probably panic cleaning too. He spent the next several hours in a cleaning frenzy, sorting through the chaos, eliminating the worst offenders, and making his small apartment look less like a disaster zone. By midnight, exhausted and still bewildered, he collapsed onto his bed, staring at the ceiling. What did Nocturnians find emotionally stimulating? The news reports had been vague about their physiology and psychology, focusing more on their technological superiority and the terms of the peace. What if he couldn't provide whatever it was they needed? Would they consider it a treaty violation? As sleep finally claimed him, James had one final, disturbing thought. What if he was actually good at this? What would that say about him? Morning arrived too quickly, bringing with it the reality of his new obligation. James showered, dressed in his new clothes, and left for Integration Center 12 with a knot of dread in his stomach. The future of human-alien relations, it seemed, now partially rested on his ability to make a Nocturnian woman happy. No pressure at all. The Integration Center resembled a cross between a government office and a luxury hotel lobby. Sleek surfaces gleamed under soft lighting, and abstract sculptures that seemed to change shape when viewed from different angles decorated the corners. James approached the reception desk where a human woman in a crisp uniform greeted him with a practiced smile. "James Mercer, reporting for the, Emotional Resonance Exchange Program," he said, his voice lowered as if confessing to a crime. The receptionist's smile didn't waver. "Welcome, Mr. Mercer. Please proceed to Orientation Room 3. Your biometric signature has been registered." A holographic arrow appeared on the floor, guiding him down a corridor where other men, all looking equally uncomfortable, were being directed to different rooms. Some emerged from side doors looking shell-shocked, while others walked with diplomatic escorts, their expressions unreadable. Orientation Room 3 was occupied by 5 other men and a human facilitator who introduced himself as Director Powell. "Gentlemen, thank you for your service to Earth-Nocturnian relations. You've been selected based on your emotional compatibility profiles with specific Nocturnian diplomats. We didn't volunteer," a man in the back pointed out. Powell's smile tightened. "Your participation helps ensure the continued peace between our species. Now, let's cover the basics of Nocturnian physiology and emotional needs." The presentation that followed explained that Nocturnians required regular emotional resonance to maintain their health. Their species processed emotions as a physical nutrient, absorbing them through specialized receptors in their skin. Without this emotional sustenance, they would experience deterioration similar to malnutrition. Earthmen have been found to produce emotional resonance patterns, particularly compatible with Nocturnian physiology, Powell explained. Your sessions will involve conversation, emotional sharing, and limited physical contact, all within your comfort boundaries. "And if we're not comfortable with any of it?" James asked. Powell's expression hardened slightly. "The treaty terms are clear. Refusal to participate is considered a violation. I don't need to remind you of the consequences of treaty violations. They were each given a small device resembling a watch. This will monitor your emotional output during sessions and provide feedback. Your goal is to reach and maintain the green zone for at least 15 minutes per session." After orientation, James was escorted to a private room furnished with comfortable seating, ambient lighting, and what appeared to be art from both Earth and Nocturnian cultures. His escort informed him that his assigned Nocturnian would arrive shortly. James paced the room, rehearsing potential conversation topics. Weather, too mundane. Hobbies? Did Nocturnians have hobbies? His novel. Probably not a good idea to discuss his fictional account of humans triumphing over aliens. The door slid open, and James turned to find himself facing a Nocturnian woman who had to duck slightly to enter the room. She stood at least 7 feet tall, with indigo skin that seemed to shimmer with an internal luminescence. Her features were humanoid but more refined, high cheekbones, a delicate nose, and eyes that were entirely violet with no visible pupils or whites. Her hair, if it could be called that, resembled fine silver filaments that moved slightly as if suspended in water. "James Mercer," she said, her voice melodic and slightly resonant, as if multiple voices were speaking in perfect harmony. "I am diplomatic liaison Nilith of House Varioth. I have been assigned to receive your emotional resonance." James swallowed hard. "Nice to meet you. I'm new at this." "As am I," she replied, gliding into the room. "This is my first Earth assignment." That surprised him. "I assumed you'd done this before. Given the importance of the program, the treaty is new for all of us." Nilith settled onto one of the couches, her movements fluid and graceful. "Please be seated. Your discomfort is distracting." James sat across from her, noticing that his emotional monitor was showing a fluctuating yellow light. "Sorry about that. I'm trying to get a handle on this whole situation. Your apology is unnecessary. Your emotional state is natural given the circumstances." Her head tilted slightly as she studied him. "You are a creator of fiction, correct? How did you know that?" "Your profile was provided to me. I find it interesting that humans create elaborate falsehoods for entertainment." James felt a spark of genuine interest. "We call it storytelling. It's not really falsehoods, more like exploring possibilities or sharing experiences through metaphor." The monitor on his wrist pulsed a brighter yellow, edging toward green. "Fascinating. On Nocturna, communication is primarily pragmatic. The concept of creating untrue scenarios for pleasure is novel." A slight smile curved her lips at the pun, and James found himself smiling back. "That's actually a decent wordplay. Do Nocturnians have humor? We appreciate pattern recognition and unexpected cognitive shifts, which I believe corresponds to your concept of humor." Nilith leaned forward slightly. "Your emotional output has increased. Please continue discussing your work." James hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. "Well, ironically, I was working on a novel about Earth fighting off an alien invasion before your people actually arrived. Needless to say, it needs some revision now." To his surprise, Nilith's expression showed what might have been amusement. "Indeed. Reality often fails to conform to our narratives. May I inquire about your fictional aliens? Were they similar to Nocturnians?" "Not really. I went with the classic tentacled monsters trope." "Not very original, I know. Perhaps now you can create more nuanced extraterrestrial characters." The monitor on his wrist shifted to green, and James felt a slight tingle where the device touched his skin. "That's excellent," Nilith said, her skin seeming to glow more brightly. "Your emotional resonance is most satisfying." James felt both uncomfortable and oddly pleased at her approval. "So, this is working. You're getting what you need from this conversation." "Yes, your genuine interest and emotional engagement provide substantial nourishment." She shifted slightly, her silver filament hair rippling. "May I ask a personal question?" "Sure, I guess. Do you resent being required to provide this service?" The monitor flickered between green and yellow as James considered how to answer. "I'm not thrilled about being conscripted," he admitted. "But I understand the stakes, and this isn't as bad as I feared." "What did you fear?" "To be honest, when I first got the notification, I thought this might involve physical requirements. Nihilith's expression shifted to what might have been surprise. "Ah, you believe this was a reproductive program?" James felt his face heat. The information wasn't very clear. Physical contact can enhance emotional resonance, but it is not required. We absorb emotional energy through proximity. She paused. However, if both parties consent, certain forms of contact can intensify the resonance. Before James could respond to that loaded statement, a chime sounded, indicating their session had reached its required duration. "Our mandatory period has concluded," Nihilith said, rising gracefully. "Tomorrow's session will be at your residence, as per protocol. The address has been registered." "Wait, my apartment. I don't think." "The treaty specifies alternating locations to ensure cultural integration." Her violet eyes held his. "Your living environment provides additional contextual resonance that enhances the experience." As she left, James stared at the emotional monitor on his wrist, which had returned to a neutral blue. What had he gotten himself into? And why was he almost looking forward to tomorrow's session? The next morning, James scrambled to make his apartment presentable. Despite yesterday's cleaning frenzy, he found dust bunnies lurking in corners and realized his idea of clean might not meet Nocturnian standards. He'd ordered fresh groceries, hoping to offer Nihilith a drink or snack, before remembering he had no idea what Nocturnians consumed, if anything. At precisely 900, his doorbell chimed. James took a deep breath and opened the door to find Nihilith standing in the hallway, wearing what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire, a shimmering silver suit that complemented her indigo skin. In the natural light streaming through his windows, he noticed subtle patterns beneath her skin, like constellations shifting beneath the surface of a twilight sky. "Good morning," he said, stepping aside. "Please come in." Nihilith ducked to enter his apartment, her height making his ceiling seem suddenly lower. "Thank you for hosting, James Mercer. Your dwelling contains much of your emotional resonance already. This will enhance our session." She moved through his living room, studying his bookshelves with apparent interest. Physical books. How quaint. On Nocturna, information is stored and shared through crystalline networks accessible to all. We have digital books too, but some of us still prefer the feel of paper, James explained, watching as she picked up a first-edition copy of Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles, with long, elegant fingers. "This contains fictional accounts of Martians?" she asked. "Yes, written before we even reached Mars. It's quite different from the reality." "As was your novel about alien invaders, I presume." She placed the book back precisely where she'd found it. "Humans seem preoccupied with imagining threats from beyond your world." James shrugged. "It's probably evolutionary. We developed by watching for predators and preparing for worst-case scenarios." "An interesting theory." "May I?" She gestured to his couch. "Of course. Can I get you anything? Water, or do Nocturnians drink?" "We can process earth water, though we do not require liquid sustenance daily as humans do." She seated herself gracefully. "Your concern for my comfort registers positively on the emotional spectrum." James noticed the monitor on his wrist already showing a soft yellow glow. He sat across from her, unsure how to proceed. "So how does this work today?" "Same as yesterday. Each session should build upon the previous. Repetition diminishes resonance quality." Nihilith's violet eyes focused intently on him. "Today, I would like to explore deeper emotional currents. Tell me of a significant memory that shaped your development." The abruptness of the request caught James off guard. "That's pretty personal for a second meeting. Is emotional intimacy not a precursor to effective resonance in human relationships as well?" "Well, yes, but it usually develops gradually. We don't typically jump straight to sharing formative memories with someone we just met yesterday." Nihilith's expression shifted subtly, something like frustration crossing her features. "The treaty timeline requires accelerated intimacy development. Our species' requirement for emotional resonance is not merely preference but biological necessity. James felt a twinge of guilt. I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just different from how humans typically interact. Different, Nylith repeated, the word sounding almost bitter. Your species agreed to these terms to prevent further conflict, yet individual humans resist the very provisions that ensure peace. The monitor on James's wrist dimmed to orange. I'm not resisting. I'm just explaining how humans typically build relationships. Then educate me, she said, leaning forward. How would you properly develop the level of emotional resonance required by my physiology? James ran a hand through his hair, usually with shared experiences, getting to know each other gradually, maybe starting with lighter topics before diving into the deep emotional stuff. We have limited time, James Mercer. Each session must progress our resonance capability. Maybe we could compromise, he suggested. We could try an activity together first, then move to deeper conversation once we're more comfortable with each other. Nylith tilted her head, considering. What activity do you propose? James glanced around his apartment and spotted his chess set on a side table. Do Nocturnians play strategy games? I could teach you chess. We have similar cognitive challenge activities. She rose and moved to the chess table with fluid grace. Explain the parameters. For the next 30 minutes, James taught Nylith the rules of chess. She absorbed the information quickly, asking insightful questions about strategy and historical context. By the time they began a practice game, the monitor on his wrist had shifted back to yellow and was occasionally flashing green. Your species creates artificial conflict in miniature, Nylith observed, moving a knight with precision. Fascinating adaptation. It's not just about conflict, James explained, studying the board. It's about pattern recognition, forward thinking, anticipating your opponent's moves, skills valuable in actual conflict, she noted. Or in understanding each other, James countered. Like now. I'm trying to figure out your strategy, to understand how you think. The monitor shifted solidly to green as their game progressed. Nylith proved to be a quick study, and soon they were engaged in a surprisingly competitive match. When James managed to capture her queen through a sequence she hadn't anticipated, her skin briefly flashed a deeper indigo. That was unexpected, she said, studying the board with new interest. Your move incorporated misdirection. It's called a sacrifice play, James explained. Sometimes you give up something valuable to gain a greater advantage. Like your species sacrificing autonomy to preserve your civilization, she observed, her gaze moving from the board to his face. The comment hung in the air between them, loaded with implication. The monitor flickered between green and yellow. Not exactly, James finally said. A sacrifice in chess is voluntary and strategic. What happened with the treaty was more like submission under duress. Nylith's skin darkened. You consider my presence here duress. That's not what I meant. James sighed, frustrated by the miscommunication. The treaty itself wasn't freely negotiated. Your ships were positioned to destroy our major cities. We didn't have much choice. And you resent this. Wouldn't your people resent it if the situations were reversed? The question seemed to startle her. Nocturna has never been in a position of vulnerability to other species. Try to imagine it. Then, James pressed. How would Nocturnians feel if humans demanded they provide us with something essential to our survival, under threat of annihilation? The monitor pulsed between orange and red now. But James didn't care. Something about Nylith's assumption of moral superiority had touched a nerve. She was silent for a long moment, her alien eyes unreadable. Your emotional resonance has changed character. There is intensity, but it has become discordant. Yeah, that happens when people feel defensive about their planet being threatened. The treaty was meant to prevent further conflict while addressing our biological needs, Nylith said, her voice taking on a formal quality. The alternative would have been catastrophic for both species, so we keep being told, James replied. But it doesn't make this situation any less strange for the humans who've been drafted into service. The chess game forgotten, they stared at each other across the table. The air between them charged with tension. The monitor had settled on a steady orange pulse. I believe we have reached an impasse in today's resonance development, Nylith finally said, rising from her seat. Perhaps reflection will allow for better alignment tomorrow. Wait, James said, standing as well. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just trying to be honest about how this feels from my perspective. Nylith paused at his door. Honesty is valued, even when discordant. Tomorrow, we will attempt a different approach. Her expression softened slightly. Your chess strategy was impressive. I would like to learn more. After she left, James stared at the abandoned chess game, pieces frozen in mid-battle. The monitor on his wrist had returned to neutral blue, but somehow he felt anything but neutral about his alien visitor and the strange relationship developing between them.